would it knock over a pig if it hit it full on?
Hello and welcome back to the second episode of the First for LCFC podcast. We've made it past the pilot episode. We've been renewed for a second episode of this series. So whether this is your first time tuning in or you listened to episode 1 and you've somehow made it back for episode 2, we're very glad that you can join us again. So once again, my name is Jamie Thorpe and I'm delighted to be joined by the other First for LCFC admins, the dulcet tones of both Noon and Christian.
Hello.
Hello there.
Thanks for joining. Right, so swiftly moving back onto the pod. Once again, we're going to look at the big Leicester City talking points. So let's start with something that's very recent. Yesterday's win against Burnley. Fairly monumental effort with 10 men for almost the entirety of the game. So that seems a good place to start. So Chris, the Harry Maguire red card came very, very early on. It was a fair decision in your view, was it?
Yeah, having watched it back a couple of times now, I think, it's hard to disagree with that being an instant dismissal. He was the last man. And I think he had a man running over to his left as well. So there was 2 of them against Schmeichel by that stage. I think it's a cynical foul. I don't know how much he knew about it, because obviously it's one of those where you sort of run over the back of someone else's heels. But yeah, it's definitely a red card for me, that.
So I think in hindsight, if it was intentional, it turned out to be a pretty good decision. But is that the sort of foul that you want a player to be making, is to sort of save the chance of what seemed like a certain goal so early on?
I think if you're going to get given a red card, I think basically starting a game with 10 men is probably the best time for it, really. So we weren't too far into the game. We was already sort of dominating a bit by that stage. And then it's just basically like, look, we've got 87 minutes. Let's settle with 10 men and see how it goes. And obviously it worked out for the best. So I'd say if you're going to get a red card, it probably came at the best time, really.
Yeah, is that something that you'd agree with, Ed?
Well, I'd rather get a red card in the last second, to be honest, but than the first few minutes. However, I think it was a red. Like you guys have touched upon, how much he meant it. Just from watching it on Match of the Day, he didn't seem like it wasn't a malicious challenge. However, was it a clear goal scoring opportunity? Did Maguire leave the ref with any decision to make? I'd probably say not really. It was a red. And we were discussing off air, like, based on the question, was it the right thing for Maguire to do, really? Like, would we rather start the game 1-0 down with our whole team, or would we rather start the game 0-0 with 10 men? And it's a tough one because, as Chris said off air, if we were 1-0 down early on, we do think that Burnley, especially under Dyche, would have sat back and made that a really boring affair that wouldn't have been entertaining. There probably wouldn't have been many opportunities. The football wouldn't have been of the highest quality, and it really would have been a struggle to get back into it. However, I think the fact we didn't really have a choice. It was a red and he was off and we had to play on from there. But the fact we were able to win a game in the Premier League, yes, not against the greatest side in the league, but any away win is a great result, especially one where you have 85 minutes with a player less than the opponents.
Yeah, I think that's on Match of the Day. They were saying that's the earliest a team has had a man sent off and still gone to win the game. And I think especially in it was horrible conditions. It was away at Burnley, and I think it's fair to say that we out-Burnleyed Burnley in Burnley. So it was a good result. It's not the earliest red card that Leicester have ever been shown. That was Wes Morgan back in 2013 against Millwall, where he got sent off after 2.5 minutes. Which is fairly impressive.
Good going.
But then again, so Big Wes came on. He came on much earlier than he probably was expecting to. But I think it's fair to say he was one of the star men. Is that something that you would say, or is there anyone else that stood out in particular for you?
Well, I definitely agree. I think it's tricky. I was quite vocal in my criticism of him after the Watford game. I think it was clumsy. I think the first goal for them was his fault, maybe losing his man. But I think it's just like classic Wes Morgan. Sometimes he plays, he's an absolute rock, and obviously he's got the winner as well. So basically, man of the match performance. But he is so susceptible to being found out, maybe against pacier players, and when there's more room sort of behind him. So, but yeah, yes, based on yesterday's performance, I can't criticise him. I think that header was fantastic as well. Rising above, was it 2 or 3 players who were on him? So to beat like a zonal marking system like that was pretty outstanding and a great time to bag as well.
Yeah, it was an absolutely massive goal, wasn't it? And I think that'll give them a massive lift, because it showed, well, to
I think
paraphrase
it was really
Brendan thing, it's great character.
It was like to coin a phrase, a captain's performance, wasn't it? He was very solid, and I think it was on Radio Leicester where I heard this, but I'd have to agree. Like, if Morgan was to pick 2 strikers that he had to come up against, I think Wood and Barnes would be them. He would relish that physical encounter between them.
Yeah.
Like Krys said, he is very susceptible to being found out against the teams that can put it in behind and have pacey players, skillful players. However, Wood and Barnes aren't them. They are very good at what they do. That's why they're doing it in the Premier League, and quite successfully recently. They've been scoring a few goals between them. However, maybe the stars just aligned. It looked like Morgan was slowly getting losing his place in the team. Questions about whether he'd have the contract renewed. He wasn't playing regularly, and now he's come back in. He's put in a really strong captain's performance, dominating from the back, gets the winning goal, and everyone's part of the Morgan fan club again.
Yeah,
Having said that, obviously I said like maybe he's more susceptible to getting found out by pacey strikers, but then again, the goal against Watford, that was a set piece, and he just lost his man. So, maybe his overall game is maybe slipping up, but yesterday was a fantastic performance, and then when we've got him on a good day, that is what he's capable of.
So do you think, on balance then, Krys, do you think that the new contract that he's reportedly being offered is a good thing, a 1-year deal, apparently?
In short, yes, I think it is. Maybe not necessarily for him to be starting week in, week out, but as a squad player, or certainly someone to have in the dressing room or there on a match day. Just hearing murmurs of what comes out of dressing rooms, like all the players obviously love him. He's a favourite. He's a captain. He's a club legend now. So why would you want to lose that? But in terms of him starting, especially the likes of Benkovic coming back, I'm not sure. But definitely give him the contract. It's only a short contract, so for another season, see how that goes.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you, and I think his status around the club is I think there is room for a bit of sentimentality, and I think if he's going to play a slightly reduced role, then I've personally got no problem with that either. So back to the game itself. So I think in the first half we were very positive, despite being down to 10 men. It would have been very easy to sit back and try and defend. But we went and tried to play between the lines, and a player that did that particularly well was James Maddison, who I think needed a big game. Do you think he was another one of Leicester's standout performers, Ed?
Yeah, well, recently, particularly since Rodgers has taken over, his link up with Vardy is, at least from what I've seen, really has been improving. Vardy seems more. Not sure whether he's just making more runs or he's just being found more, but definitely putting Vardy through. So that's obviously a lot more menacing, and he's sort of capped off a really good performance with what was a excellent free kick in the awful conditions. Again, I think they said on Radio Leicester before he even took it, like, if Maddison gets this over the wall in these conditions and it doesn't go over the bar, he's got a very good chance of scoring, and that's exactly what he did. I think I read that he was unwell the night before or something, and he was actually a doubt for the match, so which I'm guessing may have been part of why he came off early, but otherwise, yeah, really good, good promising performance.
I think interestingly, sorry again, Jamie, interestingly, in regards to his free kick, whilst we're on the topic, because Burnley they had a free kick sort of before, didn't they? Where Casper pulled off that worldie of a save, didn't they?
Yeah, just after the red card, I think it was immediately following it.
Yeah, and then because I think Casper obviously got great fingertips on that, and I think Heaton actually got fingertips on Madison's as well. But I think the sheer pace and maybe the conditions, like Ed says, I think it did help it in certainly, and that was it was a fantastic free kick, sort of reminiscent of that Beckham versus Greece. That's what it made me think of.
Yeah, the pace he gets on the ball is a real attribute, and I think it's from all his set plays actually. But he's the first Leicester player to score 2 free kicks in a Premier League season. But we've never really had any players that are
That is an
what you
awful
described
stat,
as
though.
specialists, isn't it? I mean, it's very telling in itself. I think we used to have the likes of, I don't know, Ben Thatcher whipping in a free kick. It's not really the same ring to it, is it? But again, that's his first goal in 14 games, and I think hopefully he kicks on a bit. But another player that had a big influence on the game, obviously, was that man, Yuri Tielemans, once more with a fantastic assist. And I know we mentioned it last week, but just how good do you think this guy can be? And at 40 million, we've got to pay it, surely, haven't we, Krys?
I'd say so, yeah. And it's, again, in regards to his sort of deliveries, like, what was it, like last season or season before, didn't we go like X amount of games not being able to score from a corner, was it? And I was just looking at him since he's joined, and just being able to deliver a ball into a danger area, it seems like such a straightforward thing for a professional footballer, but the fact he can do it repeatedly, again, yesterday for Wes Morgan's goal, it's just refreshing to see. And like you said, 40 million just for his overall ability on the pitch, it is a steal. And hopefully he's settled in and he'll see this as his best option. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer, and but the earlier we get that business done, I think the better. The longer he goes on, it does worry me that other teams are going to be sniffing around. But he seems open to the possibility of staying with us, which is really, really encouraging. And I suppose one thing that would certainly entice him to stay on would be a prospect of European football. And the only way we're going to get that is the slim chance of when you finish in 7th with various convoluted qualifications with other teams beating other teams or what have you. But that does mean that we will be starting the season very, very early on in almost June, July, August time. So, Ed, is that something that you want to see from Leicester this year? A chance for them to get into the very early qualifying rounds of the Europa
I
League?
think a European tour would be fantastic. I know last time it was amongst many other factors to the detriment of our Premier League season, but the Leicester City, and I know it won't be in the Champions League, obviously, but I do think it would be brilliant to even if it's just putting our name out there to say, look, we don't just want to compete in the Premier League. We are Leicester City, and yes, traditionally, historically, we've not been the biggest club, but we have these ambitions to do this regularly. And if we have the opportunity to do that this season, then yes, I would certainly. And Krys said on the last podcast, didn't he, how, and I think there was a good point he made about actually if we come together early next season under a new manager, perhaps that extra time and playing time and experiences would be useful as Rodgers is trying to drum in this new philosophy and his new ideas to actually get the opportunity to have a few more games to do that. I don't particularly think it's a bad thing. Maybe also worth clarifying, 7th, what we're discussing off air, that 7th may not actually get us into the Europa League if we even get there. So we were trying to, for those listening, we were trying to look up exactly what the rules are to do with qualifying for the Europa League. And in short, now we know who's in the FA Cup semi-finals. The only way for us to qualify for the Europa League is for Manchester City to win the FA Cup. So if Watford, Brighton or Wolves win the FA Cup, they will get the Europa League spot that 7th place would normally get. So I think as any Leicester fan that does want to go on a European tour again, at least when the FA Cup comes around, I think our blue shirts may go a slight shade lighter as we become Man City fans. I wanted to say royal. I wanted to say our royal blue shirts, but as I'm colourblind, I don't even know what colour Leicester shirts are. I know they play in blue, but I'm not sure what shade.
We are royal. It's royal blue, I think. So there's many things just being clarified by Ed. There's some top analysis. So other than so that's now Rodgers is so he's managed to rack up a few early ones, which would be great for the squad, for his confidence. Krys, are you pleased with how he started so far?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't really complain in terms of the results we've got. And I think the most refreshing thing is just the playing style. And obviously I was watching Leicester anyway, and regardless of what would happen, I'd always watch Leicester, but just actually being able to enjoy Leicester play, be excited. We're not going into games thinking, yeah, we're going to score 2 maximum. Like, who knows? We could score 3, 4, 5. And it's the fact we had 10 men yesterday and we still looked good for it. I think that's the main thing. But in regards to the Europa League as well, before we move on to a different topic, I think just looking at the last 8 now, so you got Arsenal, Napoli, Slavia Prague, Chelsea, Benfica, Frankfurt, Villarreal and Valencia, right? I fancy Leicester to beat any of those teams on over 2 legs. So do you not think that the Europa League, once you're in it and you really put your mind to it, there's no reason why we can't be dreaming about sort of that as realistic silverware as well?
I think some of those teams I'd be more confident. For example, I wouldn't be what's the word, intimidated by drawing any of those teams. Sure, how a team, the stronger ones such as Napoli, obviously a tough team to play against. Chelsea, yeah, they're not been great this season, but still strong. Valencia, for example. But there are teams I would, if we were to draw Slavia Prague or Eintracht Frankfurt, I would be confident in those. So, and this is the quarterfinal. This is late on in the competition. We've shown that we can beat Sevilla, and we've shown, I know it was a couple of years ago, we've shown we're capable of holding our own against Atletico Madrid, who are a very strong side. So, if we were to qualify and we were to take it seriously, obviously I don't want that to be to the detriment of our Premier League status. However, I don't see why we can't be mixing it up against these teams who are still in now.
I'm just looking at it and thinking, look, what realistically next season we're not going to be breaking into the top 6. I mean, our goal will be to be breaking into the top 6. But if we're going to be playing for 7th, all that means again is qualification for the Europa League. So why not prioritise the Europa League potentially as the main trophy? Obviously, aim for the top 10 in the Premier League again, but I just don't see anything scary about the Europa League. The group stages should be a breeze. And then, like you said, it depends. Look at the draw. And if you're lucky in the knockouts, you could be going all the way. And I know I'm thinking way ahead, but it just seems like a really good tournament to get some European silverware in.
Oh, no, I completely agree. And I think, like Ed said a few times, the opportunity to go on another European tour would be brilliant and something that I think our fans would absolutely jump at the chance. I think the majority of them. And of course, Rodgers has got a bit of experience of these early qualification rounds. So obviously, it'd be great to see what he could do with significantly better players. Not that I want to get into that once again. But something else that Rodgers is doing very, very well, I think, like you touched on with the attacking play. And one of the main beneficiaries of that has been Jamie Vardy. And we saw him against Fulham get his 99th and 100th goal. Obviously, very unselfishly laying one on for Tielemans as well. So we thought we'd have a quick talk through what we think are his top 5 goals for Leicester City. So obviously, if anyone listening that disagrees with us or you think there's anything that we've missed out, please feel free to let Ed and Krys know. It's their fault, not mine.
And Jamie.
No, leave me firmly out of it.
Jamie made the agenda, just saying it.
It's beautiful as well. Right, so I think that number 5 is what we all agreed together as a team was a fourth goal in that epic 5-3 comeback against Man U at home. And I think for me, I think the significance of that was first season back in the Premier League. You're coming with the team. Man U have spent multi-millions across the summer. I think they had players like Di Maria, Falcao, Rooney still playing, and for them to come on our own patch and for us to really just take it sort of toe to toe with them was absolutely fantastic. And no player sort of summed it up better than Vardy. But I think it showed just how good he could be for us, because there are many players running through 1-on-1 in a game of that magnitude that are going to, against a player of De Gea's quality as well, don't forget, that are going to fluff their lines. But he made absolutely no mistake, and he seemed to absolutely relish the chance to upset the big boys. And I think that's something that we've seen a lot from him. Is just chance to rustle fans or players alike. So, and then I think he's, like I said, he's done that. He's done that multiple times to his Leicester.
Great haircut at that time as well. I seem to remember he had a proper mohawk.
I remember thinking that was a bet.
Trendy.
He's had some absolute rotters over the years, hasn't he? So, and then at number 4,
I remember watching that in the final year at university, and that was an afternoon and a half.
Everyone at uni was doing the hair like Vardy, I seem to remember.
God.
Not a chance.
I really hope not.
Who are we to be nasty about Vardy, who is one of our greatest ever strikers, about his haircut? I don't care. He can shave it all off. He can have a mohawk. He can do whatever. As long as he keeps getting the goals, I'm happy.
With my thatch, I'm the last person to give anyone abuse about the hairline, put it that way. Right, so coming in at number 4 then, Krys, I think yours was a European goal.
It was Sevilla away. Assisted, by the way, by Danny Drinkwater, of all people. Does anyone remember it?
Who?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was shocked because, but having watched it back, definitely Danny Drinkwater. So, hats off to him. Not played a competitive match in a year, but well done for that. But anyway, so at the time, we was getting absolutely battered in that match. It was only 2-0 at the time, but I mean, it could have easily been 6-0, I seem to remember. And that goal came on 72 minutes. Classic Vardy. What was it? Maybe a few yards out, just outside the 6-yard box, pinged in across, and it's, hit the roof of the net, which is a great finish. But, I think had we not scored then, taking them back to the King Power, 2-0 down, it's quite a mountain. But I think, momentum-wise, I think it was just an iconic goal, really. And the fact it was classic Vardy, it wasn't nothing too special, just made it all that much better. And, it was a great night, I seem to remember.
Yeah, like you said, gave us that lifeline and the chance to obviously do it all in the home leg, which, let's not forget, for me, was one of the best games I've ever been to live. And I think his goal was a massive part of that. But that is his classic bread and butter, isn't it? I think being the first man there, getting ahead of his marker. But he's got a technical goal in his locker, which I think, Ed, was your number 3.
Yes. So whilst Krys and Jamie have gone for the most, perhaps most meaningful or important goals, I've managed to select those that I think were the most impressive technically. So at 3, I've gone for Vardy's goal against West Brom. I get the team name right. In March 2018. Just a really, really great finish. I think we could have tried this 100,000 times, and maybe not that many, but wouldn't be there now. We would still be there now. Wouldn't have been able to do this with the quality that Vardy was. So just as a reminder, we're 1-0 down away at West Brom. Mahrez picked the ball up just inside our own half. and he's just pinged one right to the edge of the box. Vardy's running onto it, and first time, no control. He doesn't really stop his run, and he just volleys it into the bottom corner. There's nothing the defence can do about it. There's nothing the keeper can. It's just absolutely quality out of nowhere. We had the ball in our own half. Mahrez, absolutely brilliant ball. Would love him in our current side, but it was brilliant. Pinged it half the length of the pitch. Vardy couldn't have wanted it in a better place, and he couldn't have really made a better finish from it.
I seem to remember it sort of comes over his right shoulder, and it's truly sumptuous finish at that stage. Obviously, like trying to control the ball that you'd maybe seen for like a second beforehand is
didn't need to control it, just put it in the bottom corner.
In terms of controlling his finish, it's somewhat special, isn't it?
And he brilliantly, as he does, he loves to do, celebrates in front of the away.
Lovely,
the other team's fans pointing at himself. Yeah, I just did that.
Well, especially the West Brom away. Especially at West Brom away, where he scored pretty much every time he's been there. So it is a shame.
Important goal as well. Maybe not as important as you guys, but that was an equaliser in a game that ended up 4-1 to Leicester. So a catalyst of things to come. I just thought that was a brilliant finish.
I think it won our goal of the season as well, didn't it?
Yeah.
So that's a mark of just.
I think it was typical of the way we played that season, though, isn't it? I mean, literally route one. There's no other options, get it up there, and he's always going to be on the end of that sort of ball. So, yeah, definitely agree.
Johnny Evans couldn't do anything about that.
Sure, he gets reminded about it now.
I don't even know if it was him. I'm just presuming it was. It may have been Gareth McCall.
I'd presume. Well, it was either one of those two speedsters that can keep up with him. That's for sure. So I think coming in at number 2 then was, and again, a goal that was possibly more for its significance, Krys.
Absolutely. What a goal it was as well. 11, it's heaven. It is Jamie Vardy, and it was an absolute fantastic goal. So, setting the scene, Jamie Vardy needs his goal to make it 11 in a row against Man United. You got Fuchs down that right-hand side, wasn't it, at the time, and a no-look pass straight beyond about 2 or 3 players. Jamie Vardy's on the shoulder of it. Was it Smalling, I seem to remember? I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. And then, again, I think first or second touch takes it across De Gea. And he's left helpless, and he's gone away carting in front of the Man United fans in true style. So, classic Vardy, massive goal, and I don't see that record being beaten for quite a while.
Yeah, definitely. Again, especially taking it off one of their players in Ruud van Nistelrooy as well, wasn't he? So there was extra significance over there, but I can't see that record ever being beaten. I think the closest
Mane fancies his chances at the moment.
Do you not believe that Kelechi Iheanacho is not going to beat that record?
Yeah, might add that to the agenda for the next podcast, actually.
Yeah, I think if he ever does that, you've got to do some fairly interesting forfeit live on the next on the following podcast.
On the next one.
But I'm pretty sure that might have to be series 4 or 5 at this rate. But definitely can't see it being beaten again. But then for his final goal, not only was it significant, but it was a thing of absolute beauty. So Ed, I'll let you describe this one. I think it's an obvious choice.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really. It's not going to be a challenge thinking what goal I've chosen here. If I was to use the word "thronker," it may help you understand exactly what it was. Picture the scene. Home to Liverpool, big game, 0-0 on the hour, just before the hour. Again, similar, not dissimilar actually to the goal that I was talking about against West Brom. Mahrez is picking it up even more deep this time. He's midway through our own half, and he just hits a long ball, and it falls into the path of Vardy. It's probably 30-35 yards out to the right towards the corner of the edge of the box. And you're thinking, someone get up with him so he can cross it. But then you see him, he's looking at the goal, he's looking where the keeper is, And you're like, no, he's not going to do it. He's not, is he? And then he's 30 yards out. He runs to the ball. He hardly changes his stride, and he thronks it back of the net. Mignolet is on his arse, and Vardy is just in the corner, and he's loving it. That is classic Jamie Vardy. Absolutely. It's just a brilliant finish, isn't it? He's amazing ball, amazing run, hardly changing his stride, and pings it. Notices that Mignolet is off his line and thinks, I'm going for it. I don't know if there's many other Leicester players who would think that. Iheanacho. Well, Vardy put it in the middle of the goal. I think Iheanacho probably would have put it top bins. However, it's just a brilliant finish. Ballsy finish. It showed a sign of a confident striker, one that believed in his ability. And that was the first of his 2 on that night, as Leicester went on to win 2-0.
And it was an extremely significant win, though, wasn't it? It was midway. It was sort of February time. I think Man City were travelling to Sunderland that day, so we were only 3 points clear heading into it. So I think to once again take a team like Liverpool and beat them convincingly with goals like that must have.
Funnily enough, if you want to do a comparison between now and then, at that stage we were, after 24 games, 16 points ahead of where Liverpool are, with a plus 22 better goal difference than them. So, yeah, things change in football. However, brilliant goal, brilliant game, brilliant season. Classic Jamie Vardy, what a striker. And who would have thought that after his first season,
absolutely.
I seem to remember it a lot. Even before his second season, wasn't there speculation linking with a loan move to Sheffield Wednesday or another championship side? I seem to.
Yeah, I think it was well documented that he didn't exactly settle, and I think he was even questioning whether he was good enough for the championship. So I think he's definitely done his detractors no end of harm. But I think some of the other honourable mentions outside the top 5. I think I personally love that lob he scored against Spurs, where it came through on the volley. Just as the Spurs fans were singing about his wife being in I'm a Celebrity, not saying it particularly pleasant. That's just classic Vardy, isn't it? The chance to run over in that corner, finger on his lips, and let them know what's going on. But I think in the last home game, there were fans chanting England's number 9. Do you think looking at the England squad, Harry is an obvious first choice striker, but it possibly is a bit thin up front. Do you think that the Vardy is a big miss from that squad, Krys?
I think Vardy's a sort of player that until he even retires from club football, he can do a job at international level as an impact sub. I think he definitely did retire prematurely. And I think, like you said, the options for England are growing. But in terms of that number 9 role, that's probably the one position that Vardy could have sort of afforded to stay in. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't know his reasons sort of behind it all, but I think he'd be in this squad without a doubt if he was still willing to play. But just before we move on, I've just found a definition of thronker, and it was actually started by BBC's Dan Walker in October of 2011.
Yeah, because just for everyone that's listening, Ed, I think we had some you went through the full criteria with us off air about what a thronker actually is, because both myself and Krys were thinking that you were just making things up. But can you just give us a taste of exactly what that might be?
Well, there is a few criteria through which we determine what a thronker is and what a thronker is not. If you give me a very short amount of time, I will find the definitions. However, I think there's 9 or 10. So a few of them are things like, did he hit it as hard as he can? Did the ball, I don't know, hit the back of the net before it bounced? A few of the more interesting ones, for example, would it knock over a pig if it hit it full on? Another.
I think we can agree that shot would have done.
Yeah. So would Vardy's shot have knocked over a full-grown pig? Yes or no? Another one is, would it annihilate a... I can't remember what animal it is. Would it annihilate a pigeon? So if
pigeon.
a shot you hit as hard as you can, if it hit a pigeon, if the pigeon would not get up from that shot, it was a thronker.
I can agree with that. I don't think the pigeon would have seen life again after that. No.
The only thing that would have been...
So we're categorically agreed that Vardy's goal against Liverpool was a thronker of the top draw. And we'll try and move on because I'm barely holding this one together. The England squad there, which we touched upon very, very briefly a minute ago. Chilwell and Maguire obviously been called up once again. Do you think that's well deserved, Krys?
Well, I thought it was, and then I tweeted it, and you got a lot of people who are disagreeing with it, and I can see it from their point of view. I think some of the criticism might be a bit harsh of Chilwell in particular, saying he's sort of maybe got a bit big-headed and he thinks it's sort of deserved, and maybe his performance has slipped up recently. I mean, I don't personally agree with that. I think in terms of Maguire, he's solid enough. And some are even saying he might have got sent off on purpose yesterday, obviously in jest. So he's extra fresh for his England call-up, professional as ever. But no, I think they're both deserved. And I think the only one that might have had half a shout as well is James Maddison. But again, his performances were drifting a bit. So maybe his time isn't just yet. But in terms of Chilwell and Maguire, I would have had them both in, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you mentioned Maddison because I suppose whilst his performances have perhaps been drifting, it's when you look at players that did make the cut, like Ross Barkley, you wonder whether he would be better. I mean, Ed, out of the two of them, who are you taking in your squad?
I think you need to consider what tactics, formation England are wanting to use. I think, for me, James Maddison is the man behind the striker. He plays in that hole. If England were to play a system where they wanted that player, they would have options of providing everyone was fit. Dele Alli, Jesse Lingard, even Harry Kane might drop a bit deeper and then play Rashford in the more advanced role. So there are lots of options in that position, and even going back to would Jamie Vardy be in the England squad, I think he probably would be just about, but I really don't think he'd get any playing time at the minute. I know England over the last few years haven't had a great plethora of attacking talent, but right now you got to think we've got players like Kane, Rashford, Sterling, Sancho, Ali, Lingard. There's 6. Well, only maximum 4 of them are going to play already.
I agree. Are they not? They're all. I'll argue they're all. Should be starting, and they're not necessarily proven impact subs at that level. Whereas Vardy would have that option at international level, something that a lot of these higher end defenders or the players who are getting chosen for their countries might not be used to dealing with domestically.
Yeah, I think he'd be in the squad. Don't get me wrong. However, I can understand why. Think if there is all this competition, maybe it would be better for. Is Maddison in the under-21 squad?
Yeah.
Maybe it is better until he is in a position to challenge these players to actually get a bit of more international experience under 21s. So when he does come into the England first team, he's not there to make up the numbers. He's there because he can compete with Ali or Lingard or someone else who bursts on the scene. That's if they want to play a player in that position, of course. There may be just wanting more of a solid midfielders as they're playing, I don't know, wingers or more strikers or wing backs, etc. At which point does Maddison then fit into that system? I think he probably could play in it there, but I think for me his best place is that number 10 attacking mid. So I can understand. I think he could perhaps feel a little hard done by, but I don't think it is the shocking decision.
True, I think I obviously get what you say tactically, but I think the main disappointment was that he is the top chance creator in Europe, and I think Sancho got into the last squad based on his sort of European form and goal scorer and assists and all that. So obviously, they're totally different players, but I don't know, especially with Czech Republic and Bulgaria. I think if you're going to give someone a chance, you're not going to. These teams aren't necessarily awful, but they're far from the best in Europe. So I don't know. I think he's got a right to feel hard done by, and they could have found a place for him for 15 minutes at the end of one of these games when maybe they're 2 or 3-0 up.
Yeah, I suppose the other side of the coin is that he is in the under-21 squad, as Ed says, and I think looking at the strength of that squad, just had a quick look at it. Leicester have 4 players. They make up 3 out of 7 of the midfielders with Barnes, Chowdhury, and Maddison all in it. And Demarai Gray's also made the cut. And it's an extremely strong squad. And I think if he's playing the full 90 there, then surely is that not of a great benefit to him as well as playing for the senior team?
You got to think as well on the point Krys just made. He's saying these aren't the strongest teams, so it would make sense to perhaps risk a few less experienced players. However, the first game, Czech Republic at home, agreed, not the strongest team, but it is the first game of a qualification campaign, so you definitely want to start off as strong as possible. And then Montenegro away is the second game. Again, not strongest, but I think any away international game, bar perhaps San Marino and the likes, are testing conditions, testing games. So perhaps, let me look at the fixtures. Early next season, England have a home game in the qualifier against Kosovo. Maybe when we're a few games into the campaign and there's an easier game there, perhaps Maddison, if he continues this sort of form vis-a-vis chance creation, he could play then.
True. It's obviously England have got the Nations League finals in the summer. So again, not sure whether he'd be considered for that, but I guess only time will tell as well.
6th of the 6th against Holland.
Right. So we missed out on predictions for this week's game. So what do you reckon England's chances are against Czech Republic? Then guys, put your neck on the line with a prediction for this one.
I don't know a lot about the Czech Republic at the moment. I don't think they've got any. They've not got like Milan Baros or anyone anymore. So I don't know. Home England. England never really like batter teams, do they? So I'll go 2-0 England.
What I think you'll find, Jamie, is whilst me and Krys agree on a fair few things to do with Leicester, or at times have similar predictions, when it comes to England, I don't think we've ever agreed on a result. For one reason or another, I think I probably have my rose-tinted glasses, whereas Krys is the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Just looking at Czech Republic's recent form, games haven't had a lot of goals in. So last game, 1-0 win against Slovakia. Game before, they beat Poland 1-0. Sorry, Krys. Game before, they lost to Ukraine 1-0. So hardly, they're not conceding, but they're not scoring. So I've got to back England. England are, I think they go in places internationally. Maybe like a 3-1, something like that.
That about wraps it up for this episode of the First Real FC podcast. So thank you to everyone that's still with us at the 45-minute mark. Really appreciate your time. Feedback, as we said, it will always welcome to hear it. And hopefully we're renewed for episode 3. So, thank you very much for listening and hope to hear from you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.